Not at all. Mr. Trump, who has to play the theatrical role of the Make America Great Again and all of that kind of theater, he's going to stick it to everybody. The Europeans haven't done enough. They haven't supported enough. He's angry at our allies, and so he threatens them with tariffs. What does that mean? Well, first, a word about tariffs, since I have discovered that many Americans, at least, do not literally understand what it is. A tariff is a tax. It's the name of a particular tax. Usually, a particular tax has an adjective in front of it, like income tax, that's a tax on our income, or property tax, that's a tax on our property, or sales tax, that's a tax on us when we spend money. A tariff is on a tax when we import something, and it just has its own name rather than being called import tax. And by the way, for most of American history, it was called an import duty, because duty and tax are synonyms. So a tariff is a tax. And we should all be aware that the Republican Party, led by Mr. Trump, a party that for a century defined itself in American politics as the anti-tax party, the party that will cut your taxes, is now gung-ho raising your taxes. That's what pro-tariff means. They don't want to tell you that the way I just did, because it would make people's eyebrows go up and wonder, what? That's what I would like you to do. Mr. Trump is busy putting tariffs on China, on Europe, on Canada, on Mexico, everywhere you turn. The tariff is not only a tax, it's a tax paid by Americans to the American government. If something comes in from abroad, let's say a Chinese electric car, the Chinese produce them. They produce the best cars, electric cars in the world at the lowest price. They have won the competition to do that. The BYD Corporation in China in particular is extraordinarily successful. They will deliver you an electric vehicle for $30,000. But if you're an American, a company buying such a car to do your business, or a consumer who wants such a car, you would have to come up with $30,000 to pay to the Chinese BYD company to get the car. But in order to pick it up from your dealer, you'd also have to give, through your dealer, the government of the United States the tariff on electric cars from China. That used to be 27% under Biden. Biden then raised it to 100%, which means in addition to the $30,000 you would have to pay to the Chinese producer to get that car, you'd have to pay the equivalent, 100% of that, another 30 to Uncle Sam. So you'd be out 60 grand to get the $30,000 car. Okay, that's what it is. And the goal of it is to make life very hard for the Chinese to sell any cars in the United States, because you can buy an electric car from General Motors or Ford or Tesla. It's not as cheap, it's not as good, but you can do it. You can get them for 40 or 50 grand. More than you'd have to pay if you could buy the better car from China, but less than you'd have to pay. And so if you go around America right now, you don't see any BYD cars or trucks. If you go to Europe right now, as I'm speaking to you, they're all over the place. Now, let me tell you, if you put a tariff on Europe, which is what Trump is hinting at, we don't know whether he'll really do it. Many of the things he says, he never does. But if he puts a tariff on Europe, it will mean that Europe will discover that America, its major market in the world, will buy fewer things because it's too expensive. Because for me to buy such a European thing, once a tariff is attached, I'll have to supplement what I pay for the thing by paying Uncle Sam whatever the tariff is he puts on it. So the Europeans will suffer a loss of their exports, and that will damage their economy. Companies who lose that business will lay off workers in Italy or Germany or Britain or France. And that will Unemployment means they're not paying taxes because they don't earn the income. They're relying on government supports, which for unemployed people are much more generous in Europe than they are in the United States, as they have been for many decades. So this is going to really hurt Europe at a time when they're already suffering. The way von der Leyen said, the price of freedom, as if she actually believes most folks will not see through such nonsense. So it'll be a blow. But let me drive home that Mr. Trump got into the presidency by being the guy who's nasty, who refers to Mexicans as rapists, who all the things we know about him, being the naughty, being the one who says what others dare not say, whether they're Republicans or Democrats. That's his method of being. That's brought him to the White House. Why expect him to change? He'd have to understand that getting there is a different project from being there. And there's no sign that he has such an idea. Here's how gross it is, because it drives the point home. You all know, everyone watching knows, that in the Los Angeles area, we've had the worst destructive fires, certainly in the history of Los Angeles, but probably in the history of the United States, and it's still not over. In order to deal with that, the 5,300-member Los Angeles area fire department didn't have enough people to fight fires that big, that long-lasting, etc. So one of the things they did was to appeal to firefighters outside of the Los Angeles area, not only in the state of California, but in the other states nearby, and not only in the United States, but we appealed to our two neighbors, Canada and Mexico, and they all responded. Canadian and Mexican professional firefighters left their respective countries to help the United States fight a fire. And while they were doing that, the President of the United States, the new president, announced he's going to deport Mexicans into Mexico where there are no jobs for them. He's going to put tariffs on Mexican goods, which means they can't sell them in the United States the way they used to, so they will be laying off people, worsening the unemployment to which the deported immigrants will be added. And of course, if you deport immigrants, you cut back on the flow of remittances, they're called, the portion of the income that an undocumented Mexican earns here in the United States that he or she sends back for their children or their elderly. So the response of the United States to the two countries we border with who helped us with the fires is to smash them down. It is, history will look back on this and will shake its heads in a mixture of disbelief and disgust.